The email hit Elias Navarro's inbox at 2:47 a.m., subject line screaming urgency. Urgent. Keynote speaker cancellation. SF Tech Summit. His phone buzzed relentlessly on the glass desk, the sound clawing at the silence of his penthouse office overlooking San Francisco Bay. Elias, 28, CEO of Quantum Pulse, a cybersecurity empire, didn't flinch. Panic was for lesser minds. He skimmed the message. Their keynote speaker, a Nobel laureate, had bailed. The summit was in 3 days, and 10,000 attendees expected a name. Elias's jaw tightened. Failure wasn't an option, not for the man who'd built a billion-dollar company from a dorm room at MIT. He typed a curt reply to his team, "Find someone. Now." By dawn, his assistant, Priya, had a name. Julian Carter, 29, Hollywood's golden boy, fresh off an Oscar win for The Last Horizon. Elias scoffed. An actor? At a tech summit? But Priya's logic was ironclad. Julian's viral TED Talk on AI ethics had 12 million views, and his charm could sell sand in a desert. Elias relented, though the idea of a pretty face stealing his spotlight grated. The first meeting was a disaster. Julian strode into Quantum Pulse's sleek headquarters, all easy smiles and tailored charisma, his brown eyes catching the light like they were made for it. Elias, in his minimalist black blazer, sized him up, too polished, too perfect. "You're late," Elias snapped, glancing at his watch. Julian's grin didn't falter. "Traffic's a beast, man. You ever try navigating Market Street at noon?" Elias ignored the quip, diving into summit logistics. Julian leaned back, tossing ideas with infuriating ease, gamifying the keynote, weaving in a narrative about AI's human impact. Elias hated to admit it, but the man wasn't just a face. He was sharp, disarming, and dangerously magnetic. Over the next 2 days, they clashed and collaborated, Elias's cold precision meeting Julian's fiery improvisation. Late nights in the office turned into debates over code, ethics, and, somehow, pizza versus tacos. Elias caught himself noticing Julian's laugh, the way it filled the sterile room with warmth. He shoved the thought down. He didn't do feelings. Feelings were variables he couldn't control. On the eve of the summit, they stood on the rooftop of Quantum Pulse headquarters, reviewing the final script. The city glittered below, the Golden Gate Bridge a faint silhouette against the sunset. Julian leaned close, pointing out a line in the script, his arm brushing Elias's. The contact sent a jolt through Elias, unfamiliar and unnerving. "You okay, man?" Julian asked, his voice soft, eyes searching. Elias stepped back, heart pounding. "Fine," he muttered, turning to the skyline. But Julian's gaze lingered, and for the first time, Elias felt exposed, not as a CEO, but as a man. The summit was electric. The Moscone Center buzzed with tech giants, startups, and press, all eyes on the stage where Elias and Julian stood. Elias delivered the opening, his voice sharp and commanding, outlining Quantum Pulse's latest encryption breakthrough. Then Julian took over, weaving a story of a world where AI could save lives or destroy them. His charisma was a tidal wave, pulling the crowd in, even Elias. Backstage, Julian grabbed Elias's shoulder, grinning. "We killed it, Navarro." Elias stiffened at the touch, his usual walls crumbling under Julian's warmth. He muttered a thanks and fled to his office, needing distance. But Julian followed, undeterred, leaning against the doorframe. "You always this intense, or is it just me?" Elias didn't answer, focusing on his laptop. Julian didn't push, just sat across from him, scrolling through his phone, the silence oddly comfortable. Hours passed, the city lights painting patterns on the walls. Julian spoke first. "You ever let yourself just feel something? Without overthinking it?" The question hit like a punch. Elias's life was a fortress of logic, code, numbers, control. Feelings were chaos. Yet here was Julian, unraveling him with a single look. "I don't have time for that," Elias said, voice tight. Julian leaned forward, eyes earnest. "You're allowed to, you know. Even geniuses get to be human." That night, Elias couldn't sleep. Julian's words echoed, stirring something he'd buried years ago. At 19, he'd loved someone, a quiet coder named Ryan who'd left when Elias's ambition consumed everything. He'd vowed never again. But Julian wasn't Ryan. He was a supernova, and Elias was caught in his orbit. The next week, Julian invited Elias to a charity gala in Los Angeles, a glitzy affair for arts education. Elias, out of his element among Hollywood elites, felt like an alien. Julian, in a tailored tux, was in his. He introduced Elias to directors, writers, even a senator, his hand grazing Elias's back, grounding him. At the gala's end, they stood on a balcony overlooking the city, the air thick with possibility. "You don't belong here," Elias said, half joking, gesturing to the glittering crowd. Julian laughed, stepping closer. "Neither do you. But we're here anyway." His hand found Elias's, a tentative touch. Elias didn't pull away. The gala marked a shift. Back in San Francisco, Julian became a constant in Elias's life. Coffee runs, late-night coding sessions, walks along the Embarcadero. Elias fought it, but Julian's warmth was relentless, cracking his defenses. One night, in Elias's penthouse, Julian cooked dinner, burnt pasta, but the effort made Elias laugh, a sound so rare it startled them both. "You're not as cold as you think," Julian said, passing him a glass of wine. Elias wanted to argue, but the truth was in the way his chest tightened when Julian smiled. Then came the storm. A tabloid leaked photos of them together, Julian's hand on Elias's arm, their faces close at a cafe. Headlines screamed, "Hollywood heartthrob's secret romance with tech titan." Elias's board panicked, investors called, and his carefully curated image cracked. He retreated, ghosting Julian's texts, burying himself in work. Julian didn't let him hide. He showed up at Quantum Pulse, storming past security. "You don't get to shut me out," he said, voice raw. "I'm not some scandal you can delete." Elias's walls buckled. "This could ruin everything," he snapped, but his voice broke. "I can't lose control." Julian stepped closer, unflinching. "You're not losing control. You're just scared to feel." He reached for Elias's hand, and this time, Elias let him. They talked until dawn, unraveling fears. Elias's terror of vulnerability, Julian's pressure to be Hollywood's perfect star. When Julian kissed him, soft and certain, Elias didn't pull away. It was a beginning, fragile but real. But the world wasn't kind. A rival tech firm, sensing weakness, leaked a smear campaign, accusing Elias of prioritizing his personal life over Quantum Pulse. The board demanded a public statement. Elias faced a choice: protect his empire or protect what he'd found with Julian. Elias stood before the press, cameras flashing, his usual armor gone. He'd spent days drafting a cold, corporate denial, but Julian's voice echoed, "You're allowed to be human." So he spoke from the heart. "I'm Elias Navarro, CEO of Quantum Pulse. I'm also a man who's learning what it means to love. That doesn't make me less of a leader. It makes me better." The room fell silent, then erupted. Social media exploded, some praising his courage, others tearing him apart. Quantum Pulse stock dipped, but Elias felt lighter than ever. Julian was there, in the crowd, his smile a beacon. They rebuilt together. Elias hired a PR team to weather the storm, while Julian used his platform to advocate for authenticity, turning their story into a rallying cry. Quantum Pulse launched a campaign for diversity in tech, and Julian's next film, a queer love story, broke box office records. Months later, they stood on that same rooftop, the city alive below. Julian carved their initials into the wooden bench, grinning. "For posterity," he said. Elias laughed, pulling him close. The skyline stretched before them, a testament to a world they were changing, one truth at a time. Their love wasn't perfect. Elias still overthought. Julian still burned too bright. But they were enough, messy, real, and unbreakable. And in that moment, with the Golden Gate glowing in the distance, Elias knew logic had built his empire, but love had built his life.